Right now, something unusual is happening around the New York Yankees, and it's the kind of buzz that makes fans stop scrolling and start asking questions. Bo Bichette's name is suddenly popping up in Yankees conversations. Trade rumors are quietly heating up, and front offices around baseball are watching closely. No official moves, no confirmed deals, but enough smoke to make you wonder if something big could actually be brewing. Tonight we're breaking down what's real, what's speculation, and why this situation matters more than it seems for the Yankees' future. Stay with me, because this story is far from ordinary. Now let's get into it, because when a name like Bo Bichette starts floating around Yankee circles, it's not something you can just ignore. This isn't some fringe player or a random rumor thrown out for clicks. Bichette is one of the most recognizable shortstops in baseball, a core piece of the Toronto Blue Jays, and a player who represents exactly the kind of talent the Yankees always keep an eye on. The reason this buzz feels different is because it's not coming from one loud source making bold claims. It's coming from multiple quiet discussions, subtle comments, roster logic, and timing that just happens to line up in a very interesting way. No one is saying a trade is imminent, and that's important to be clear about, but the idea itself is being taken seriously enough to talk about, and that alone tells us something. The Yankees right now are at a crossroads. They're balancing win-now pressure with long-term flexibility, and every off-season and trade deadline becomes a chess match rather than a simple shopping trip. When you look at their infield situation, their lineup balance, and the future of their roster, it's easy to see why fans and analysts are at least asking the question, would the Yankees explore a high-impact move if the opportunity presented itself? Bo Bichette fits the profile of a player who would instantly change the complexion of an offense. He's a right-handed hitter with pop, bat-to-ball skills, and postseason-level intensity, and those traits always catch the Yankees' attention. At the same time, Toronto is dealing with its own questions. The Blue Jays have been trying to push through a competitive window that hasn't quite delivered the deep postseason run they hoped for. When teams hover in that space, they're forced to evaluate everything, including whether their current core is still the right path forward. Again, that doesn't mean they're shopping Bichette, but baseball history tells us that when pressure builds, even unlikely conversations can happen behind closed doors. From the Yankees' perspective, the appeal of even discussing a player like Bichette goes beyond star power. It's about lineup construction, run production consistency, and reducing the feast or famine stretches that have plagued the offense at times. The Yankees have leaned heavily on power, and while that can win games, it can also disappear against elite pitching. A hitter like Bichette brings a different element, someone who can drive the ball, work counts, and keep innings alive. That kind of balance is what championship rosters usually have. Defensively, there are questions that would need to be addressed, because the Yankees already have infield pieces they value, and any major move would require reshuffling roles or making tough decisions. That's part of why this is complicated and why nothing should be treated as guaranteed. Trades of this magnitude are rarely simple swaps. They involve multiple players, long-term planning, financial considerations, and a clear understanding of where a team believes it is in its competitive cycle. What makes this story compelling is not that a deal is happening, but that the idea itself isn't being dismissed outright. Yankees fans are used to hearing rumors about stars, but they're also used to seeing restraint when the price doesn't align with the front office's vision. This regime has shown they're willing to wait, pivot, and sometimes surprise people when the timing feels right. Another layer to this conversation is how the Yankees are viewed around the league. They're always seen as a team that could strike if circumstances change, and that perception alone fuels speculation. When a player of Bichette's caliber is discussed in any uncertain context, the Yankees are almost automatically mentioned, not because they're reckless, but because they have the resources, the ambition, and the spotlight. At the same time, it's important not to fall into the trap of assuming every rumor leads somewhere. Baseball is full of exploratory talks that never come close to becoming reality. Front offices constantly gather information, test valuations, and prepare for scenarios that may never materialize. That's how smart organizations operate. The Yankees, in particular, are known for doing their homework quietly. If they ever truly engaged in something like this, it likely wouldn't leak in dramatic fashion until very late in the process. That's why fans should approach this buzz with curiosity, not expectation. It's okay to analyze the fit, debate the cost, and imagine the lineup, but it's also important to understand the hurdles. Toronto would demand a massive return for a player like Bichette, and the Yankees would have to decide if sacrificing depth, young talent, or future flexibility is worth it. Those are not easy calls, especially when the organization has been trying to protect its pipeline. Another factor that adds intrigue is timing. Trade rumors often spike when teams are evaluating their direction, whether that's during the offseason, approaching the trade deadline, or after a disappointing stretch. That's when speculative conversations gain traction. For the Yankees, timing is everything. They're always measuring how close they are to a championship and what piece, if any, could push them over the top without creating new problems down the line. That's why discussions around Bichette feel more like a thought experiment than a breaking transaction. But even thought experiments can reveal a lot about a team's priorities. The fan reaction to this buzz has been exactly what you'd expect, excitement mixed with skepticism. Some fans see it as a dream scenario, imagining Bichette in pinstripes anchoring the lineup for years. Others immediately point out the cost, the positional fit, and the reality that Toronto has no obligation to entertain such a move. Both sides are valid. What matters is that this conversation highlights how closely the Yankees are scrutinizing their roster and how fans are hungry for clarity about the team's direction. Whether or not this specific rumor goes anywhere, it reinforces the idea that the Yankees are constantly evaluating high-impact options rather than settling for incremental changes. That's part of being the Yankees. Every move, every rumor, every decision is magnified. As of now, there is no confirmation, no deal on the table, and no indication that a trade involving Bo Bichette is actively being negotiated. What we do have is a reminder of how quickly narratives can form in baseball when talent, timing, and uncertainty intersect. It's a story worth watching, not because it's guaranteed to happen, but because it reflects the ongoing tension between ambition and patience in the Yankees front office. So when you see the headlines and the social media chatter asking, is this actually happening? The honest answer is simple. Nothing is happening yet. But the fact that people are asking tells you something about the moment the Yankees are in. And as we've learned time and time again, the most surprising moves in baseball often come when everyone stops expecting them. If you want to stay ahead of these conversations, understand the context, and separate real analysis from pure noise, make sure you're locked in right here, because as soon as anything concrete develops, you'll hear it.